What's going on, everybody? Aiden from Birds vs. Boys here, and tonight we have a special guest, Shane Haff, who covers the Eagles for the Eagles Pinpool podcast, is with us. He is our eye in the sky Eagles fans. He's the best one I've seen on social media in terms of breaking down the all 22 film post game to see what's going on with our offense and defense. What a great time to have him here. Shane, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Always excited to come on and talk about the Birds.
We were talking before the show started, but neither of us really got to focus on the game live as it was happening. So I'm sure what a film breakdown for you this week. You know, both of us were kind of watching on the delay and just total chaos. What a roller coaster.
Yeah, so I normally watch the game live and I'll live tweet clips. And I always say I live tweet games as an emotional fan. Yes. And then I circle back and I do the analytical stuff during the week. And I didn't get that outlet for the emotional fan during one of the wildest games I've ever watched. It was just a crazy experience for sure.
I'm sure the anxiety was killing you. I might be, I tweet as an emotional fan and then I circle back and also tweet again as an emotional fan. So we need some analytics here. So let's start with it tonight. Now, we had actually talked the week before about setting this up. And part of the reason why is when you rewatched that Chiefs film, you had actually seen some positives. One of the biggest being their ability to pick up blitzes and pick up pressures. Has that been something that's been carrying over for this team? And did it carry over against the Rams?
Well, it was kind of a disaster against the Rams. But you know, with the caveat, Lane Johnson goes out of the game early and Matt Pryor was an unmitigated disaster. So when you look at the blitz numbers for the season as a whole, it's definitely skewed very negatively because, you know, a couple bad plays against the blitz dramatically outweigh a few good plays against the blitz, especially when you're looking at things like EPA. But against the Chiefs, I thought Jalen was in command at the line of scrimmage. I thought the pass protection by the running backs was really good, which was an issue in week 1. It was also an issue in week 3. So we're kind of all over the place, but you know, there's some mitigating circumstances up front. So I didn't think it was good against the Rams, but I did think it was good against the Chiefs when they had their starting offensive line out there. And so I do think that bodes well moving forward in the season.
Now, that was one of the reasons why I started with this and asked, because as we move into week 4, if there has been a kryptonite of this Sirianni Hurts era, it is the Todd Bowles Tampa defense. They just have not been able to figure it out for the most part, and they are sure going to see a lot of pressure on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something they're going to have to be prepared for. And, you know, one of the best things you can do is just not get into those third and long situations. You know, when a team wants to walk everybody up on the line, if you can run into the teeth of that because it's 3rd and 3, I mean, you can reasonably get a first down, but also there's a chance when everybody's stacked on the line, you can just break a 60-yard run, something we haven't seen the Eagles do this year. But, you know, calling that sort of a run play on a 3rd and 7, a 3rd and 10, that's just not really viable. And so it's really important the Eagles win early downs and are able to stay ahead of the sticks on schedule because it just gives you options. It doesn't allow the defense to fully pin their ears back and know they must drop back to pass here. And then Todd Bowles can do some of the crazy stuff that he likes to do. So winning early downs is going to be huge to help with that.
That's actually, when I did my post-game recap, that was one of the things I noted is for a game and a half, they were putting themselves behind the sticks. In the second half, I thought they did a much better job of kind of setting themselves up at least a little bit for success. I know 2 of the biggest plays were 3rd and 10s to A.J. Brown, but aside from that, I thought they did a pretty good job. Speaking of A.J. Brown, the offense, after a game like that, I don't want to harp too much negative, but one thing I've noticed in following your all-22 breakdowns is a predictability and a lack of imagination with the route trees in the offense. It feels like it's a lot of slants. It's a lot of 3rd and 10s to the sticks. It's a lot of guys ending up in the same place. What do you think the root cause of stuff like that is?
Yeah, man, if we could get to the root of that, it would answer questions we've had for years in Philadelphia, to be honest. And I feel like a lot of the issue with the Eagles' pure drop back passing game. And so obviously, you know, they've talked about on broadcast that teams are playing a ton of zone coverage against the Eagles this year. And I mean, you do that because you can't cover AJ Brown in man coverage unless your name's Patrick Surtain, which we'll get to see in a couple of weeks. You can't really, it's a struggle to cover DeVonta Smith in the slot in man coverage. And so teams are playing a lot of zone. That makes it harder. It also keeps eyes on Jalen to limit his scrambling ability. And so what the Eagles have done a lot through the first 2 games is they come out in 2-by-2 formation. So you've got 2 receiving threats to one side. One of those is probably a tight end, but regardless, it's balanced. And the problem with that being how you attack zone coverage so much is you're not able to generate a numbers advantage on either side. So if you just think about 2 receiving threats on each side of the field, it's really easy for the defense to put 3 defensive backs on both sides. And now we're +1 on both sides and there's no numbers advantage. Now, if you go 3-by-1, well, now all of a sudden the defense has to make a decision. Do we stay, balanced? And now you've got a numbers advantage where you've got 3 receivers going against 3 defensive backs. Or do we push coverage over that way? And now you're lessening coverage. You're trying to cover the solo guy one-on-one. And we know AJ Brown's nearly uncoverable one-on-one. So it forces the defense to make some difficult decisions. And you can get there from 2-by-2 if you have routes coming across the field. But the Eagles largely haven't done that. They'll run, curls on one side of the formation and they'll run like a hitch corner route on the other side. And so there's nothing breaking over the middle that really puts guys into conflict. I did think, in the game against the Rams, they did start to spread it out more. They got the second tight end off the field. They started to get into 3-by-1. And that's where you saw some of AJ Brown's isolation stuff. But again, what they're getting into, there's still some predictability there because AJ Brown's touchdown came 3-by-1 with him isolated. He had another curl route thrown on 3-by-1 where he was the isolated guy. And I think every other snap they were in 3-by-1 out of the shotgun was a run play with the bubble screen thing tacked onto the end. And so again, if you become that predictable, a defense just knows, okay, let's put 2 guys over AJ. Let's stack the box. And we've taken away everything they want to do out of these. So they need to build out some more passing concepts out of that. But it's at least a start to get AJ Brown outside the numbers and force defenses to make difficult decisions.
And I was going to ask if you saw anything different in the second half that led to that comeback offensively. That sounds, I've read your breakdown, so I know, but for the people at home, that sounds, from what I heard, is what was going on is they were in these 3-by-1s. They were isolating AJ Brown in a good matchup. Maybe having that on tape makes defenses fear more optionality within the offense, right? Like it might be a situation where now there's just more to handle and the decision-making process is then put back onto the defense.
Yeah, for sure. And just practically, almost any time a defense wants to give me a single high safety look, I'm perfectly fine with running AJ Brown on a vertical route, a comeback route, or a curl route and throwing him the ball because I just don't think there's many corners in the NFL that can be responsible for AJ Brown deep and also take away those comebacks and curls. And even if they do, like on the last drive, he had 2 catches where he was not open, but the ball was there perfectly and he caught it and broke 2 tackles and was off to the races. So I would force feed the ball to AJ Brown to a point and make defenses overcommit to stopping it.
I totally agree. It's just like if we're going to have this much talent on the field, we'll just believe that our talent is better than their talent. Sometimes that backfires on them. As we just mentioned, it feels like they just think, well, our guys will get open. But it's almost like a basketball analogy. When James Harden is holding the ball for 17 seconds in the shot clock, you kind of know where it's going to end up, as talented as he is. It kind of ends up that way with the Eagles offense sometimes as well, where defenses have an idea of where everything is going. So we'll see how that turns out on Sunday. To the defensive side of the ball, what is going on with Jalen Carter? Because every person who breaks down the all-22 who I trust, and you're one of them, has said some of these reps just are lacking. I don't want to use the word effort, but let's use the word effort.
Yeah, so the biggest one that I tweeted that went viral and people really got mad about it. Okay, so Jalen Carter is lined up in the B gap, which is between the guard and the tackle, and he's slanting to the A gap. So he's trying to jump across the face of the guard. Well, it just so happens the guard is trying to block him that direction too. And so, that's a bad situation to be in. It's why I don't love slanting in the run game like that. It opens you up to those things. However, I mean, the guy gets like a hand on him and he just kind of stumbles all the way across the hash marks. And so, I would like to see him fight back inside, try to sit down a little bit there. And maybe he loses his balance and that's just one bad rep. But there was more than one of those. I saw another play where he's slanting and it's only a single solo block that just kind of takes him out of the play. And so he hasn't been nearly as stout in the run game as you would like. And I've heard a lot of references. I think Vic Fangio mentioned something about him being in shape. Jordan Davis, I think, mentioned something about weight control for him. And so, maybe there's some conditioning things there. And he still makes some good plays. I mean, he was right in on that 4th and 1 stop. Mm-hmm. And so, maybe it's a little bit of conserving energy because he's getting gassed out there. I don't know exactly what the answer is. He hasn't been a bad player. No. And him being back has been impactful, but he hasn't been the Jalen Carter that was on the field last year. And the Eagles have also done some weird things with him. Like there were some snaps in this game where they lined him up as the nose tackle with Jordan Davis outside, which is that's backwards of what you would expect. So I don't know what the Eagles were doing the few times they tried that. But Carter certainly hasn't looked the same. And, I'm fairly confident he will get back into that flow as we go. It's not something I'm worried about long-term, but that contributes, along with the Rams just being excellent in the run game and Puka Nacua being a cheat code and Jahad Campbell being a little slow to trigger in the run game. All of those things stack up and you give up 160 yards on the ground.
Yeah. And I felt like there was a lot of, them breaking it to the outside and us losing contain. And all of a sudden you think you have something bottled up. It turns into 10, 15 yards for one of their running backs. So I felt like there was a lot of that. Feels like for the defense, this is a rearranged defensive line. So maybe they're trying new things, which is another thing. Has it on tape? It looked like he really hurt his wrist last week. Was it different at all before he hurt his wrist to after? I know it's a small sample size, but this has been a consistent thing where it's kind of weird formations and him not being able to win as much as he did last year.
Yeah, I can't point to anything that's been majorly different. I know I remember watching him grab at his wrist on the play and you see him kind of holding it at times. And so I'm sure that's bothering him and playing into it as well. And, you mentioned losing the edge and Josh Uche has been really good as a pass rusher, but he's not a great run defender. He never has been. And, typically, Cooper DeJean is really good as a run defender, and Puka Nacua ate his lunch sealing off the edge. But that's partially because Nacua is such a good blocker. Mm-hmm. But also, they will motion Nacua out there, and then they'll release him through the offensive line running crossing routes. And so if you overcommit trying to get outside of him, he might not actually be blocking, and now you're toasted that way. And so he's kind of a cheat code, and it's just kind of a perfect storm. I don't expect the Eagles' run defense to struggle as much as they did against the Rams moving forward. Mm-hmm. I do think it won't be as good as last year, but I don't expect that degree of struggle to really crop up again.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and it's definitely a learning process. I think it was you who posted Uche, who he was chasing a tight end, and then the play is still going on behind him, and it bounces out for like a 16-yard gain to Corum. So we're all learning on the fly, but you're right. I think that was between the Rams and the 49ers, I think you're getting some of the best skill position blocking that you could see across the season. So we'll see.
That was such a weird play too. I have so many questions. Like, was he supposed to be in man coverage on that tight end and he thought it was a pass? Because that would be a weird assignment. I guess maybe you dropped it. I have so many questions on that one.
I have seen them drop back the edges a few times, but you're right. It didn't look like he was dropping back and thought it was a pass. It just looked like he was playing tag with a tight end in the middle of the game.
Yeah. I don't know what was going on that one for sure.
I'm sure he's getting asked the same question in the film room probably today as we record this. Now, to the outside, Jacorian Bennett had to fill in for Adoree Jackson. I know, barring injury, they might both be out this week. You mentioned he got targeted every single play on that final drive. He did have one stop where he made a pretty good break on the route. What did you see from him? Anything promising going forward, that he could take over as CB2?
Yeah, Bennett is tough because he is good and he's pretty good in man coverage. The Eagles don't really play a lot of press man coverage. And so I don't know how well it plays into his skill set, but a couple of his weaknesses, like he's really aggressive breaking down. Like he gave up a slant route where he was right there. I mean, he's at the catch point. The problem with Bennett is he is really grabby. Now, they didn't flag him. There were 2 different plays on the final drive where they could have thrown a flag on him. And I don't think either was a flag, but it wouldn't surprise me to see a flag fly in either of those situations. It was that corner route where he falls down and Stafford overthrew Nakua, and then the underthrown ball where he didn't get his head around. You could conceivably flag either one of those. And I do think if he is on the field, he is going to draw flags, and he's just not a good tackler. And so, but Adoree Jackson's not a good tackler either. And so, you kind of get into a game of, do you want a guy that's going to get flagged, or do you want a guy that's going to play softer and give up those throws in Adoree Jackson? And I think right now Jackson has that edge because he's a vet and he's been here through training camp, and the Fangio system is really tough to learn, but I'm not entirely comfortable with either one of those guys as CB2, to be honest.
True. Yeah, it feels like you get a grab bag, really. It feels like one series goes well, one series they really, really struggle. And this week, I mean, who knows? It doesn't sound, based on reports, that we could see either one of those. Then we get into Ringo territory, so that'll be an interesting film study. I've been rooting for him for quite some time, but, I mean, they're kind of telling us without telling us at this point.
Yeah.
Now, 2 last questions before we get you out of here. One serious, one not so much. But this week, second road game, what do you want to see from this offense, especially pre-snap, so that they look prepared, they handle these blitzes again, they have more rhythm and flow than they did at Arrowhead, so that they can finally handle the kryptonite that is Tampa Bay?
Yeah, I would like to see him major and empty. I love empty. I've preached the good news of empty for years. And it gives you if you have a mobile quarterback, it gives you the best of both worlds, because you go empty, you're spreading out the defense, you force them to declare their coverage pre-snap, you force them to show you where the pressure is coming from. Now, obviously, they don't have to, but they would be playing very unsound if they try to disguise things. And so then you can exploit that, but you don't have to sacrifice the running game because you've got a mobile quarterback who can run downhill. It doesn't even have to be outside. You've seen like the pin pull stuff where, Dickerson will pin the defensive tackle and Juergens is pulling through the B gap to get out in front of Hurts and lead block. So I would like to see him do that. It's a great way to diagnose pressure, spread the defense, make them make their choices about how they want to play coverage. And, if you want to blitz, then, good luck, because you're saying that I think we've got a guy that can cover AJ Brown one-on-one. I think we've got a guy that can cover DeVonta Smith one-on-one. And I just don't think that's true. So I would like to see him spread the field. I would like to see them stay away from putting a second tight end on the field. The Eagles just don't have a second tight end worth playing significant snaps. And the more you condense things, the easier it is to disguise pressure. So even if you're not an empty, keep guys spread out, get AJ Brown outside the numbers, get somebody outside the numbers on the other side of the field, and make the defense cover, 53 yards horizontally. And so I think that helps out a lot. And I think a lot of the run game builds off of that. Once you open that up and you're stretching those defenses, I think you'll start to see things open up in the run game as well.
I'm so happy you said that, because I feel like I become a broken record on our show talking about that, and how if you just utilize these weapons on the outside and the defense can start to look less and less in the backfield, it just opens everything back up. So I'm really, really glad to hear you say that, and we'll hope for it this week. I do think, like you mentioned, in the times that they have gone empty, it feels like they've had some success with it, and I agree. I'd like to see it this week where we kind of spread them out, and like you said, make them cover 53 yards of the field. It'll make things less predictable. So I'm very much in agreement there. One last question for you before we get you out of here. I know you said not to ask, but I'm going to ask: CJ Gardner-Johnson coming back?
No. The Texans just showed you why the Eagles moved on from him. All the reports that are already coming out. It is not worth the headache. I'm very happy to have Andrew Makuba out there. I don't need that back in the building.
As am I. I'm thankful for the time that we had, but I think the that relationship is over.
Yeah, it's one of those things. When you're on your 5th team in 5 years, it's probably not the 5 teams.
Yeah, it's like when you're on a job resume and your resume every 3 months you're starting a new job, the employer starts to question why you're cycling through jobs so quickly.
Yeah.
That feels like the football version of this.
Yes, just a little bit.
Just a little bit. All right, Shane, I really appreciate you coming on tonight. I think, like I said, the fans here get a lot of the emotional side. This was a good analytical breakdown of what's going on, especially at a really good point with our offense where we've seen a little bit of both. So I want to give you the opportunity to plug where you're at on social media and with your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys can follow me on Twitter at Shane Haff NFL. That's Haff, Haff. And I tweet through tons of all 22 clips. I think I put out like 42 clips on the offense this week and like 28 on the defense. So you don't have to go get NFL Pro. You can just follow my timeline, and I tweet a lot of interesting plays. And then, if you want more, I've got a podcast network that I run, the Eagles Pinpull Network, and it's got a wide array of stuff. I have a film review show with Johnny Page, who's the staff writer for BGN that does film stuff. We recorded today. We normally record on Wednesdays, but those episodes are out. So we dive into the film on offense and defense. And we've got a lot of other shows. If you're not a big film guy, we've got fan shows, preview shows, recap shows, post game, all of that stuff. And then if you're really a film nerd, you can check out our Patreon at patreon.com/ontheshanepage. And I mean, we've got 3 different membership tiers, but at our highest tier each week, you're getting access to a community Discord where we're in there talking football all the time. People ask us questions and we teach concepts of the game. You get my pass game review that'll drop tomorrow, where I go through and I draw up the plays. I put week 1's up on Twitter for free if you want to see what it looks like, but I'm diagramming the plays, talking through the coverages and things. We have a player spotlight where this week I watched every snap of AJ Brown and just talked through what I saw from him. Johnny does a film preview show. So we've got honestly more content than you can probably consume as a film nerd over on our Patreon, and you can grab a free trial of any tier for a week. Come check it out. We think you'll really like it.
I think that's really important. As fans, we've never had more access than we do today. It's good to learn the game from people like you who study it. So I am one of those people who scrolls through and watches every play breakdown that you post. So I'll catch myself at the gym in between sets kind of reading through. It's a great resource. So everybody go ahead and follow Shane. Shane, once again, I appreciate it. And we'll be back later this week to preview the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. Talk to you soon.
Chris Hansen here, and I'm going to need you all to take a seat right over there and check out Birds versus Boys.
I think you're completely right here, and I hate it.
Yep. Hey, idiots. Stop doing dumb things.
I got 2 phones.
Upset alert. Upset alert. I might go insane.
I think you're already there.
There's no hope. Hope is gone.
If this was an AFC North podcast, we'd be done in 15 minutes.
Bob Hope.
I'm going to drink bleach.
That is
the team you promised me you were going to be this year.
This is the Consciously Hopeful podcast.
I'll be watching.